Hey everybody, welcome back to Sid's channel. I will be subbing in for Sid today as he is busy working on other projects, but we didn't want to keep you guys waiting anymore. I know it was a few days ago that we mentioned that we had gotten our hands on a Studio Series 1986 Jazz. I wanted to go ahead and bring that to you today, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. As you can see, we have Jazz right here. What we'll do, and following with most other review videos, we will take a look at the packaging first. I know Sid likes to open the boxes in front, just live, and share all of the struggles of trying to remove the Transformers out of the packages with you guys. I, on the other hand, figured it might be a little bit easier if I went ahead and took him out of the box and we could just look at the packaging and the figures separately. So let's go ahead with that. I will move him back. We'll bring this forward first. So we do have Studio Series Autobot Jazz 8601. All right, so for those who don't know, the 86 signifies the year that the original Transformers the movie came out. 01 is the first figure released under this 86 line. We have on the side some good artwork of Jazz. We have on the back the product shots and very limited information. It's not like it used to be with Transformers when I was a kid. They had a bio, they had a quote, everything really helped develop the character. Here, I believe Hasbro and Takara are dependent upon the previous knowledge and also on anybody watching the newer releases such as the War for Cybertron trilogy on Netflix. So we have big screen inspired. Autobot Jazz makes a futile escape as Unicron devours Moonbase 1. If anybody remembers that, Roger me, Wilco me. That was some of Jazz's last words. Moonbase 1 destruction. So this is the figure based on the Jazz that we saw in that scene in the 1986 movie. On the side, we have more artwork. We have here on the bottom the warnings, UPC code, all that good stuff. Top, not a lot to see there, just a little bit of a pass-through. All right, and we will move on to what is included in the box. It's very limited with Jazz. We're looking at essentially the instructions, which they are relatively easy to follow. I will say that the Transformers, Hasbro's come a long way in the last decade or so in providing more clear, concise instructions and larger photos, or larger illustrations, I should say, as to the steps you need to take to transform the figure. All right, and then we'll come on over to the main event here. This is the man himself. This is Jazz. For those who don't know, Jazz, as he originally appeared, was the pop culture character, if you will. He was the first to really adopt the Earth language, Earth music, the phrases and the sayings that were cool at the time. He very much was trying to adapt to his new Earth home. It always made me laugh listening to him and some of the phrases that he said, and even particularly now as an adult, that he is a little dated when you watch those 1980 cartoons, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe Catman Struthers voiced Jazz in the cartoon in the 1980s, and always really enjoyed him. I think he did a great job and brought a lot of life to the Jazz character. So, removing Jazz for a moment, we'll take a look here. This is the display base that comes with Jazz in the box, so you do have a little bit of artwork here depicting internally the Ark. Or, excuse me, I apologize. This isn't the Ark. This is the Moonbase 1 destruction. So you can actually see a little bit of Cybertron over here in the corner. And not a lot to see on this. course, the back is nothing but cardboard, so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and put that back here. And we'll look at Jazz himself. So I'll give you guys a couple of close-ups here. Overall, I would say my impressions of this, that he was really, this figure is really accurate within the limits of engineering and design that we have nowadays. He's pretty accurate to the G1 figure and what we see represented in the Transformers movies. So I feel like Hasbro and Takara did a very commendable job here in blending both of those together. So you get a lot of callbacks to the original G1 figure and the Jazz that we saw in the movie, with some modern engineering, which is nice. And we'll be doing a comparison here shortly, and we'll take a look at that. But go ahead and get a little bit of a close-up here. You can see the head sculpt is pretty good. I do feel that he may have benefited from a little bit more detail down here around the grill. At least we got the painted headlights, which is nice. Jazz was originally based on a Porsche. I'm not sure they got the Porsche licensing this time around, so he is loosely based on a Porsche-esque type race car. So the only other accessory that comes with Jazz is what he's holding. This is his weapon. Okay, so this is something that, I don't know, I understand the reasoning behind it, but this is something that recently I do take a little bit of issue with. I know every gram of plastic costs money, and I do understand that, they want to bring the best figures at the best value to the consumer. But I think we lose a lot when we have all of these hollow areas, particularly when it's on both sides. One could argue, okay, this is just detailing for the firearm or for the weapon, but I think that this is just a cost-saving measure. And I think he could have benefited from slightly more robust detailing in that weapon, considering this is the only accessory that came with him. All right, so we do have, excuse me, some detail there. You'll notice when we get to the comparison, this is actually pretty accurate to the G1 figure, which I appreciate. We do have good detailing down here in the leg area. All right, we'll turn him around here to the side. Now, yes, he is a Transformer. Yes, he's a car. Yes, he has a backpack. That's just the way it is most of the time in these mainline figures. It's not a terrible backpack, but shocking, I know, you see a hood, a windshield, and some windows. It's pretty typical, so I'm not going to criticize too much on that. Now, going back to what I mentioned about the gun, if we take a look here on the inside of the legs, you have a similar situation here. You have, obvious cost saving here to try to hollow these out. The nice thing is this isn't particularly noticeable because they have this rib in here that does add a little bit of detailing. So, one could use one's imagination to say, all right, that's a piston. That's, some type of mechanical actuator that's happening in his leg. So that helps a little bit. On the back, a pretty good job there. The only real hollow areas that you have here are back here behind his legs. Benefits from the fact that it is black, so it's difficult to see. So that is very helpful. Everywhere else is filled in pretty well. You do have the hollowed areas in the forearms as well, but that's because the fists actually fold into the arms for transformation. All right, and we'll go to the right side here. Take a look at the bottom. So I think they did a fairly decent job here. Of course, Jazz has this huge spoiler, which makes the heels very stable. Okay, articulation-wise, we do have the head on a ball joint, so you get your typical articulation there. There's nothing groundbreaking, but also doesn't limit you. So he has a pretty good range of motion up and down. I don't know how well down would do for him, because one of the other thing, especially with the Autobots, when you have the typical Autobot car hood, front bumper, chest area. If I put myself in the shoes of Jazz and I'm looking through his eyes and I look down, how am I going to see anything? Because I'm going to be looking right there. So I pity these Autobots not being able to ever see their feet. Side note. All right, so we have shoulder. Shoulders come out 90 degrees, stop right there. So pretty decent range of movement there. You also have the ability, if you need, to move internally. So you can get the arms up a little bit higher. You have 360 degrees at the shoulder. You do have 90-degree elbow with bicep rotation. You do not get any wrist rotation, but that is due to the fact that the wrists swing in for transformation. One thing that I love that Hasbro and Takara are doing now is implementing waist rotation. This just makes posability so much more fun. These guys aren't stiff anymore. They don't feel like statues. You can actually get them in some nice poses, which is great. Ab crunch would always be nice. I'll put that on a wish list, but I'm not going to complain about it. I mean, this is a $20 mainline figure. Not going to complain too much about that. For the legs, you do get outward movement. He can do a better set of splits than I can, so I will give him the win there. Kicks out in the front that far, kicks out in the back that far. So pretty good motion there. You do get thigh rotation. You get well over a 90-degree bend at the knee, mostly due to transformation. But you do have a second joint in there that you can utilize if you want to make some slightly more creative poses. And down here at the bottom, you get ankle rotation, another really nice thing that's been put in. Ankle rotation and waist rotation have just been revolutionary for these figures. It's absolutely great. You do get a little toe movement there, but again, due to transformation as you fold that up. All right, so let's set this guy down. We'll bring in a few figures for comparison. We'll start off with one I do believe, not entirely sure what Hasbro was doing, what the intention was here. It may have been a little bit of bleed over between the War for Cybertron and Studio Series 86, just trying to figure out where these figures should go. But we have Cyclonus. Cyclonus is a very large Voyager. So you will see a pretty significant size difference. I do not recall in the movie if Cyclonus had that much of an advantage over Jazz. They were never side by side in the movie. There was never an opportunity to see that type of comparison. But I can believe that Cyclonus would be larger than Jazz. I just don't know if it was to this extent. All right, let's take him out of the way. Bring in our next point of comparison. We have Studio Series 86 Blur. And yeah, maybe. I always thought that Blur was smaller than the typical Autobots, but maybe that was just my perception of it. But I think, other than being maybe a little bit taller than what he should be, they scale pretty well together. All right. Next, bring in the other Studio Series figure. And this would be Hot Rod. And I think that's I don't know if Hasbro and Takara were going for a hybrid between Hot Rod and Rodimus Prime here. I know as a deluxe figure, Hot Rod is a little on the small side. Or he would be sized right for a deluxe figure. Apologies. He does come with a good amount of accessories, so from a scaling standpoint, I'm not entirely sure. I would think that Hot Rod would maybe only come to here or so on Jazz when he was truly hot rod before he became Rodimus Prime. So maybe my perception on that there. But I feel that the scaling is a little bit off here. But side by side, they just look fantastic together. Move him off to the side. Now we're going to get into the Jazz comparisons. So what I will do, just for fun, is I will actually bring in, because there is no comparison whatsoever here, nothing is similar, I will bring in Jazz from the Bayverse. So this is actually going to be the Human Alliance Jazz, which is the closest thing that I have personally to a movie masterpiece Jazz. I do enjoy this Jazz. I think the transformation is fun. I think he's relatively movie accurate. Obviously, they look nothing alike except for maybe their blue visors on their eyes. But anyway, I wanted to bring him in because, poor guy didn't get a lot of screen time before he was ripped in half, and figured I'd give him a little bit of screen time here. All right, our next comparison is going to be Jazz from the Fall of Cybertron line. So we do have, this is where we're getting a little more familiar, or a little more similar to each other. Obviously, this is based on Jazz's Cybertronian mode. You will notice if you look closely at this Jazz that he has too many wheels. So he has some tires here, has some tires and wheels down here, the faux wheels, and then he has the real thing tucked away in here. They did a fairly decent job of hiding it, but going back to something that I mentioned earlier on this figure, you can tell, what this was 10 years ago or so, and you look at the fact that this has no waist rotation, the fact that this has no ankle rotation or rock at all. So it's a fairly static figure. You're not going to get into too many dynamic poses with him. But from a comparison standpoint, there they are. I don't think they look too bad together. All right, the next one we have, apologies in advance. I do have a number of figures that I haven't taken out of the box. I'm not a hardcore collector. I'm not one of those guys. I really do enjoy the toys. I like taking them out. I like playing with them. I like feeling them in my hands. This guy's just one of those that I never did that with. So this is Power of the Primes Jazz, and I don't know how easy it's going to be to see, but you do have some pretty good similarities there. I mean, there's a few good callbacks to the G1 mode there. Obviously, the vehicle mode or the alt mode is not going to be similar. The one thing that I'm so glad that they got away from was using ball joints in the elbows. Ball joints help with posability, absolutely, but a couple of huge problems. Number one, they get loose over time so easily, and number two, they are absolutely unsightly. I mean, this takes away from the overall look of the figure for me. All right, guys, our last comparison is going to be the man himself, G1 Jazz. Fun fact, this is an original. I have had this Jazz since 1985, maybe late 1984. This was, if not my first, one of my first Transformers that I ever collected. And he was actually, I got him when I sent in some UPC codes from a cereal box. So I collected enough of those and $5 and got this Jazz. So you can see that there is a pretty good comparison between the two. I'm not going to pick them up. I'm just going to let them sit right there. And yeah, overall, I would say pretty good job here. If you can find him, to wrap up, if you can find him, pick him up. I think the price point is pretty good for this. He is a good-looking figure to put on your shelf. And overall, I would recommend him. So guys, I'm going to wrap it up here. We will be posting a transformation video for Jazz sometime in the near future. But I thank you for tuning in. Please give a like. Please give a subscribe. And we'll catch you guys next time. Thank you.